The story of Prince Qubad featured in Kaya's Hangout is actually a real myth. In the Persian Shah-Nameh, the Book of Kings, Prince Siyavash goes through the exact same ordeals. Son of King Qubad, he is so outstanding that the king's wife falls madly in love with him and tries to seduce him. When Siyavash rejects her, however, she pretends he attacked her, and the king, unsure whom to believe, makes Siyavash walk through a mountain of fire to prove his innocence. After that, Siyavash asks to be sent in the war against Afrasiab to avoid further trouble. He immediately takes the city of Bat from him, forcing Afrasiab to plead for peace, then swears a truce with him. Qubad, however, presses for Siyavash to continue the war, and the prince is left with no other choice but to abandon his homeland. This is not how Siyavash's story ends, though. If you're curious, click on the link and follow me, but now you know. Hello, welcome back to my channel. How are you doing? Are you enjoying the Sabzeris festival? I absolutely loved the quest for Naida's birthday. She 100% deserves that. It was very heartwarming. But anyway, for today, I'm back with another video, and you might have guessed it, this time we will be talking about Qubad's story that we got dropped in Kaya's Hangout all the way back in version 3.8. And if you just stumbled across this and are wondering who I am and what this is, I am an archaeologist and Genshin player. I do deep dives videos behind real life historical references in Genshin, as well as a little bit of theorizing on the side. I've also been doing some live streams and commented gameplays for the latest quest. But anyway, if you think you might like Genshin and history, follow me, give me a like, give me a comment. You can also follow me on Hoyolab. You'll find my nick and link in the description. But as for today's topic, let's get back to the Shah-Nameh, the Book of Kings. So first of all, what is the Shah-Nameh? The Shah-Nameh is the longest poem ever written in human history. It is composed of over 50,000 couplets, so couple of verses, and it was written by the Persian poet Firdusi between the end of the 10th and the beginning of the 11th century. And just in case there were any Farsi-speaking people out there, I'm very sorry for my pronunciation. I don't speak Farsi, and I hope you can forgive me in case this sounds awful. So, but anyway, the Shah-Nameh covers essentially all of Persian history from its mythical foundation. So in the first section you'll have a real mythology of how man came to be, how Persia was founded and all. Then you have a second section that's more, how to call it, heroic. So you have this dynasty of hero kings. And then you have a third section that is more rooted in real history. And Qubad's story actually comes from the second section, so the heroic section. His real name in the Shah-Nameh is actually Siyavash. I am not sure why Genshin chose to change his name. I think that maybe one of my friends actually gave me a plausible explanation. We'll talk some more about that. But anyway, just bear in mind that his real name is not Qubad, but Siyavash. And Siyavash's story comes from the story of the so-called Kayan dynasty, so the heroic dynasty that supposedly ruled Persia in some kind of mythical time that we can't exactly pinpoint. And in case you're wondering, yes, I'm wondering too if this could actually also be a reference for Kaya's name, because you know Kaya, the kings in the dynasty, all bear the title Kai. So it's Kai Qubad, Kai Qubad, Kai Siyavash, and so on. But you'll see that's far from being the only similarity between Kaya and Siyavash. So here's 3 things that the story of Siyavash shares both with the play and, of course, with Kaya. First of all, just like Kaya, Siyavash ends up having to rebuild his life into a different country. Following the events that unfold in the play, he's actually welcomed by Afrasiab and given his own castle. He even ends up marrying his daughter, so the princess. But for all of that, Siyavash never quite forgets about his own country. I'm going to just read you a little excerpt from the English translation of the Shah-Nameh, just to give you the feeling of that. This is the scene where Siyavash first crosses the border to go live into Afrasiab's country. The towns they passed were filled with music sound, and scattered musk and gold obscured the ground. This is because they are scattering coins everywhere. I found it is quite common in Persian poetry to do that. When someone's happy, they throw coins everywhere to share with everyone the joy. But seeing this, the prince's eyes grew dim. All the melancholy memories troubled him. He blushed for shame and turned away his face. So there's actually a little bit missing. We'll talk some more about that later. But we really see that Siyavash really misses his country. He never quite gets accustomed to be in a foreign land. And about that, I really wonder what Kaya's true feelings are. Because, you know, for all that he goes around denying that he cares about Kandria and Kandrian's legacy and all, he still did tell us that he ran away as a kid and tried to go to Sumeru just because he read somewhere that his own country actually was so in Sumeru's underground, right? And that's something that really stayed with me because, you know, I'm a binational myself, so somewhere somehow I feel touched by things like these. But anyway, that's the first thing that Kaya and Siyavash have in common. So they have a double nationality, if you like. They are originally from one place but end up rebuilding their life in another place. Second thing that Kaya and Siyavash and really Genshin and the Shah-Nameh have in common is fate. So we all know that fate plays a very big role in Genshin. We can't get enough of this fate talk in the game, and the same goes with the Shah-Nameh. Persians always placed very much importance in how the stars affected so human existence. They believed a little bit like we do with horoscopes, some of us at least, that every single individual's destiny was fixed at birth, and though humans still have free will on how to exactly direct their lives, their overall course is set from the start. And a very central point, maybe the core theme in all of Siyavash's story, is this. He is actually born with a very ill fate, a tragic one. And even though he is probably the most outstanding prince that ever lived in Persia's history, for everything he does, he can delay his fate, but he can't entirely change it. And the thing is that Siyavash himself feels that. So there are many places in his story where he realizes that he might have power and glory and riches and everything right now, but in the end everything is going to go south, and we'll see how exactly in a moment. This is, for example, what he says, what he thinks when he comes to the place where he is to build his own castle. And Siyavash said, "As the heavens roll, they cast my spirit down and steer my soul. The wealth with which my treasury is filled, the goods I've sought, the palaces I build will pass into my enemy's fell hand. Before long, death will take me from this land. And why should I rejoice where I foresee that others will sit here in place of me? I'm not long for this world, and soon, God knows, I'll need no palaces or porticos." And yeah, I mean, again, this is quite similar to, I feel, at least how Kaya thinks of himself. I mean, he did ask us right in the middle of the play about fate. He, of course, is really, really concerned by this. I wouldn't say that he goes so far as just accepting that his fate is not a good one. He still have some kind of fighting spirit in him. He seems at times angry at his fight. You remember in the Liyue bit of the hangout, where when you stop by Liu Su's to hear Liu Su's story, you actually ask Kaya what he thinks of the story, and it's a classic hero story where the hero sacrifices for everyone, and he actually tells you, yeah, I mean, I understand this is a good trope, but I always wonder what the hero thinks about that. Did he have any regrets? Is this how things should really go? And yeah, so he has doubts, but still he does know that if nothing happens, if things go the way they are intended to go, he too has the same tragic destiny as his counterpart Siyavash, or what Genshin chose to call Qubad in the play. As for the third quality that I find Siyavash and Kaya share, that would be purity. So Siyavash is a symbol of purity and righteousness to this day in Persian folklore and culture, because no matter how hard the trials he has to go through are, he always manages to retain his honor and his peculiar way of life. But what about Kaya? I mean, he doesn't exactly come across as someone who would be pure, right? Well, in my opinion, at least, this has more to do with how he is presented by both his English and Japanese PAs than with the way his character is actually thought out in the original. Because if you listen to his original voice, suddenly you will see that he seems much more light-hearted and almost at times childish. And this kind of childlike wonder we saw even in English in one scene that I absolutely adore, also from the same hangout. Look at this. I mean, look at this. He's talking to a bird and trying to convince him to perch on his shoulder the way a child would. This is not what a normal adult would do, right?
but he doesn't care. He just goes with it regardless. And there are many more situations in which Kaya does seem to have this kind of childlike wonder to himself, and maybe this is also what enables him to have this connection with Klee. Not just the fact that he apparently allows her to do whatever she wished. But anyway, aside from my personal thoughts about his original VA, there is actually another character that has referred not much to Kaya, but to another Alberich as being fundamentally pure. Do you still remember this dialogue? Yes, this is the sinner speaking the first time he meets with us, or rather our sibling and Clotter. And I've always wondered what the sinner meant by this, but I do feel that he is right if you apply this kind of quote with Kaya. I mean, I don't think it's purely coincidental. So I would still think that this is a quality that Siyavash certainly has, that we can also ascribe to Kaya. But okay, this is all very interesting and all, but how does Siyavash end up in the original tale? So, as I said, after Qubad, or rather Siyavash, leaves his own country behind, he is welcomed by King Frasyab or Afrasiab and even given his own castle to rule over. With time, he manages to get closer and closer to the king and even marries his own daughter, the princess. So what could possibly go wrong, you might ask? Well, the problem is that Siyavash is so exceptional, so loved, that eventually the other men in Afrasiab's court start to get more and more jealous of him. And this leads to one of these men starting to spread false information on both Afrasiab and Siyavash's side. So Siyavash gets told that Afrasiab has resumed thoughts of war against Persia, against Iran, and since he is, at the end of the day, still Iranian, he starts to fear that he will be the first to taste the consequences of that, so that eventually Afrasiab will rise against him. Afrasiab, meanwhile, gets told that Siyavash is so powerful, so loved by everyone, that eventually he might start to take over the whole country. So basically, he could dethrone him. This causes concern, of course, and Afrasiab ends up taking his own army right to Siyavash's castle walls. And once Siyavash sees that, he realizes that his luck has definitely run out. He manages to save his own wife, pregnant with his son, and then just let himself be captured, so that the rest of his men will be also safe. And after that, Afrasiab simply gives the order to behead Siyavash. Legend has it that from Siyavash's blood sprung a flower that is called the Fritillaria imperialis. And when I show you that, maybe some of you will see another connection with what we know in Genshin. No? Let me show you the possible reference in Genshin, right, side by side. Yes, I really think they are, in fact, meant to be the same flower. The morning flower that that grows essentially in the Vorkasha Oasis region, that, by the way, is also heavily inspired by Iranian and Persian mythology, shares a number of features with this flower that the Persians call Ashk Sivash, the tears of Siyavash, and that is supposedly was supposedly born from Siyavash's blood. With all of that, do I think that the story of Siyavash or Qubad could really be relevant for Kaya's fate in the next chapters of the game? My answer would be actually not so much, for two main reasons. Well, the first is I really struggle to find a scenario where the Holomonstad would turn against Kaya, even if they were to know eventually of his Khanrin origin. Because, well, for one, Duke already knows, and though he treats Kaya rather coldly, he hasn't actively tried to kill him yet, so, and he had no doubt plenty of opportunities, so yeah. And in the very same hangout, we also have something really positive, and that's Venti openly telling Kaya, well, not so openly, but still, that he will always watch over every single one of Mondstadt's children, and he does seem to imply that he considers Kaya to be included as well. So maybe Kaya will end up badly, but it won't be the direct doing of anyone from Mondstadt. The other thing is that, okay, fate might be this implacable thing in Genshin, but, well, we already saw someone cheat fate in Fontaine, and now in the latest Archon quest we were reminded that, yes, Mona can say that fate is written in the stars, but Scaramouche, all the way back in the Unreconciled Stars event, well, quite plainly told us that the stars are a lie. That's also my catchphrase on Hayolab. I base much of my hopes on that. So I think Kaya has got way more hope compared to his Persian antecedent or reference. This is more or less all I could find about the story of Qubad and its real-life equivalent, Siyavash in the Shah-Nameh. One last thing though before I go, why did the Genshin developers choose to change the name from Siyavash to Qubad? Because you see, Qubad actually exists in the Shah-Nameh, and he is actually Kabu's father, so Siyavash's grandfather. I didn't really have any explanation for this until one of my friends came up with an interesting theory, let's say. Because, you see, if you take Kabus and Qubad names together, you will notice that they sound more or less the same. This is a principle called alliteration that is very central to another tradition's names. Yes, maybe some of you guessed, it is the Norse and Germanic mythology. We discussed it a couple of videos ago, and as you all know, there is actually a nation in Genshin that was heavily based on Norse and Germanic mythology. That's Khaenri'ah. Now, this alone wouldn't mean anything, in my opinion, but I do find interesting that we now have a link between Khaenri'ah, which is based on Norse mythology, and Persian tradition through that flower that we saw earlier that was supposedly born from Siyavash's blood, and that grows right in front and inside Canria's factories that were destroyed during the cataclysm alongside the rest of the nation, really. So maybe we're onto something there. And speaking of names, this isn't even the only name they changed, because do you remember this guy? Yeah, he is Qubad's wise advisor, Gundafar, but in the Shah-Nameh, he isn't called Gundafar. His name is actually Rostam. Rostam is one of the greatest hero in Persian's mythology. He's basically the equivalent to the Greek Heracles. But here I have no trouble seeing why Genshin chose to change the name, because reality is we already have a Rostam in the game, right? He was, for those who don't remember, the right hand of one of the first Grandmaster of the Knights of Favonius, Arundulin, around the time of the Cataclysm. And also Rostam was also Signora's boyfriend, so to speak. Unfortunately, he dies in the Cataclysm, and Signora decides to go full berserk after that, becoming the Crimson Witch of Flames. But that makes me wonder, why did they choose the name of a Persian hero to place in Mondstadt? I mean, that's not even the only strange thing about Mondstadt. We have also plenty of Norse-sounding names. I mean, we have the Ragnavindr and the Gunhildrs, and I don't know, all of this might hide something. What do you think? But I think if I'm ever going to develop on that, it will be for the next video. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little walk around Persian mythology. Let me know what you think, and as always, I'll try to be a little more consistent with my content, but for now, see you soon.